Welcome back to Forsyth Virtual Academy's U.S. History course. Next, we're going to take a look at Jamestown and the establishment of their new government. So in 1619, the Virginia Company of London allowed Jamestown to set up their own form of government. The idea would be that they'd be allowed to create their own colonial laws. Each settlement along the James River were allowed to elect one representative called a burgess. These representatives served at the House of Burgess and became the first representative government in America. The House of Burgesses gave the colonists their first taste of self-ruling government. But it was just a taste. The Virginia Company continued to appoint the governor, and elected officials had to be at least 17 years old and own property. And even though they could pass laws in the House of Burgess, each of those laws had to be approved by the governor and the Virginia Company. 1619 brought lots of changes to the Jamestown settlement. Not only did they set up their own form of government, but they also had their first ship of indentured servants arrive. Indentured servitude was not slavery. These individuals, both men and women, signed a contract, usually 4 to 7 years, allowing them to come to Virginia. Their transportation, food, clothing, and shelter were all paid for, and at the end of those 4 to 7 years, these individuals had an opportunity at freedom. That sounds rosy and nice, but in reality, indentured servitude was extremely difficult. If anyone broke the law in any way, they could have additional years added on to their contract. For those that did survive, they were given clothes, a plot of land, and livestock to get their lives started. We'll learn more about indentured servants a little bit later on in this unit. By the 1630s, Africans in Virginia were both slaves and indentured servants. As time wore on, rights of Africans became more restricted. By 1640, they couldn't carry a gun, and by 1692, they couldn't even own horses or cattle. Enslaved Africans and indentured servants made up half of the labor force in Virginia by the early 1700s. Throughout the 1600s, Jamestown faced many difficulties. King James I took control of the colony in 1624, making it the first royal colony. Nathaniel Bacon arrived in Jamestown in 1675. He was the cousin of the governor, Sir William Berkeley. There were many causes that led to Nathaniel Bacon turning against his cousin. Most of these issues focused on the economy, and Bacon and the other colonists looked for someone to blame. The group they decided to blame were the local Native American Indians. When large-scale attacks broke out between the colonists and Native American Indians, Governor Berkeley attempted to keep the peace. Unfortunately, Nathaniel Bacon refused to listen. Bacon eventually was captured, escaped, got a group of soldiers, came back to the State House and surrounded it. He basically forced his cousin out of office and took over control of the colony. Governor Berkeley eventually got his own group of soldiers, returned, and attempted to take control back from Bacon. Long story short, Bacon ends up dying from a horrible flu and body lice, which is really, really gross. So as a history guy, I used to think I'd love to live around the time of colonial America and the establishment of colonies and be a leader in making change and establishing government. But if body lice is a possibility of how I could have died, I think I'm going to stay in this current century. After Bacon's death, Berkeley takes back control of the colony.